Hi there, my name's Colin and this is the Action Figure Resource video channel, the place for all your action figure news, reviews, tutorials and guides. If this is your first time to my channel, welcome. I hope you enjoy my videos. Today I'm going to be looking at the 10 best He-Man Masters of the Universe action figures ever released. But first, please take a few seconds to subscribe below, smash the like button and click on the bell icon to be informed of all my future videos. When you click on the bell icon, make sure you select all in the drop down menu. Also, don't forget to check out the description box below for a link to the new AFR action figure database. This database has more than 60,000 action figures listed. Each figure is listed individually with information on its release date, the manufacturer, accessories, rarity, and its historical value. For more information, see the link in the description box below. Back in 1976, along with Mego, Mattel were also offered the Star Wars license, but they passed on it and it went on to Kenner. So over the coming years, Mattel developed a line to meet the demands of a new space fantasy hungry audience of kids. The early prototypes of the Masters of the Universe line were a trio of macho figures with the idea that He-Man would span many action settings, much like the earlier G.I. Joe or even Mattel's own Big Jim line. The figures were designed with simplicity in mind, and the male form was exaggerated in its heroic proportions. Repurposed Big Jim figures were bulked out with modelling clay and then moulded in plaster and given painted sheet wax outfits for the prototypes. These three prototypes were a soldier who literally had a neck-breaking tank gun on his face, a fantasy spaceman with a suspiciously Boba Fett style helmet and rocket pack, and lastly, the familiar looking barbarian. One of the most abounding rumours when it comes to the hazy beginnings of this toy line is that it was originally created by Mattel in the early 80s as a direct tie-in for the up-and-coming 1982 Conan the Barbarian movie starring Arnold Schwarzenegger. Mattel were in negotiations but eventually declined and released the Masters figures with their own mythology and branding. Conan's rights holders did attempt to try and sue Mattel and have the figures withdrawn, but Mattel won the case. He-Man and Masters of the Universe remains one of the most popular toy franchises from the 1980s to this day, with a loyal fan base and following. The original toy line still commands as much attention as it did nearly 40 years ago, and it's easy to see why. These were plain, simple, fun toys. The simplicity of the basic He-Man figure with the same muscular body type being used over and over again actually allowed for a variety of unique action features that were incorporated into the identity of that specific character. When it was good, it was really good, but when it was bad, it was awful. Here are my top 10 picks of the best He-Man Masters of the Universe action figures ever released.
actionfigureresource.com. Yesterday's toys, today's treasures.
At the bottom of my list, at number 10, is the Man-E Faces figure. As Stewie Griffin once explained to Brian, Many Faces is just cool because he has many faces. Many Faces is a classic example of the action figure gimmicks that were inherent with this line and was leveraged as the actual character feature. Click the button on his back and he can change his face from a man to an alien and to a robot. A hero for the forces of Eternia, Many Faces debuted in the second series of the Masters of the Universe action figure line in 1983. Next, my number 9 choice is Snout Spout. Snout Spout was a fireman on Eternia, and he was the single coolest fireman ever produced. A kind of robot elephant man, he shot water out of his trunk by pouring a little water into his backpack, pressed the button, and you had instant fire suppression. Snout Spout was originally called Hose Nose by Mattel designers, which would have been just as good and just as cool really as Snout Spout. He debuted in 1986, a year after the similarly themed and coloured G.I. Joe firefighter Barbecue. My number 8 choice is Horde Trooper. First, the Horde Trooper just looks cool. Second, it's an unwritten rule in sci-fi fantasy fare from the 80s, such as Star Wars, that any kind of trooper is automatically awesome. The Horde Trooper tilts a little more to the sci-fi side, rather than the fantasy spectrum of the Masters of the Universe line. He was a mindless drone who was in service to the evil Hordak. The upper torso of the figure could explode with the press of a button concealed in the design as the Horde emblem on his chest. My next choice at number 7 is Orko. Orko set himself apart from the other Masters of the Universe figures with a radically different visual design. Not a muscular whole or robotic half something or other, Orko was a small, floating, magical wizard who aided He-Man on his adventures. His gimmick was simply that he was cool looking. He actually did have another gimmick though. Kids could pull a ripcord through his body and send him flying across a surface like a kitchen table at the most inappropriate times. Orko debuted in 1984 and remains a highly popular character today. Number 6 is Roboto. Roboto's basic deal is, well, he's a robot. This was pretty cool, especially because he had functioning gears. Kids could twist his waist, which would then set off the big, multicolored plastic gears in his chest. Functionality was everything for He-Man toys, and so was something now known as the toyetic quality. The phrase toyetic was coined to describe whether a toy lent itself to being a toy. Could it be played with? This is a feature that's virtually gone from many modern action figures, which tend to be hyper-realistic recreations of movie or TV characters with very little in the way of action features or gimmicks, which were very popular with the toys of the 70s and 80s. This also means that the modern figures are a lot less fun, and this is probably one of the many reasons why there is a decline in the market.
Welcome to the best action figure guide in the world, the largest database of action figures on the internet with 60,000 plus individual vintage action figures listed, including Star Wars, G.I. Joe, Transformers, Teenage Ninja Mutant Turtles, and many, many more, where you can get constantly updated information on available product codes, release dates, accessories, rarity, manufacturer information, PDFs, and print guides for members, and many, many more. Available of our special limited time beta discount of 70% and get a full year subscription for only $14.99. Join now.
Mechanic got his unique name from the ability to be able to extend his neck, which came in pretty handy when fighting against Skeletor and his cohorts. Mechanic was another figure driven by the action feature built into his waist, twisted and his neck periscoped up. Debuting in 1984, he upped the spy game for the good guys in a big way. Mattel even planned on calling him Spy Guy, but Mechanic seemed to be a much cooler name and stuck with him. My fourth choice is Trapjaw. Often, a Masters of the Universe action figure would be just what it said on the box, and that is absolutely true for this figure. Trapjaw was a villain from 1983, with a lower steel jaw that was articulated and a robotic right arm that could be swapped out for various nefarious implements and weapons. His awesome design and very 1980s neon colour scheme made him an instant favourite, and he remains consistently an instant go-to for any new He-Man action figure line and collectors. Number 3 is Scareglow. If Skeletor wasn't already scary enough, as will become apparent, but Mattel wasn't content with that. They had to turn it into a glowing ghost. The Scareglow figure debuted near the end of the original run in 1987 and featured 2 action figures. One was the pretty standard action figure with a feature of turning the waist and then the figure snapped back into an action punch. The second was his unique glow-in-the-dark design. The combination of spooky yellow-green glow and the skeletal head was a creepy winner. My penultimate choice at number 2, of course, is none other than He-Man. This figure had to be included, of course, as what would Masters of the Universe or He-Man be without him? This was the original and perhaps simplest of the vintage toy line. He-Man is nevertheless a quintessential 1980s toy that remains high on most collectors' lists. Like many of the figures, he had the twist, waist and power punch action feature. The muscle-bound figure was inspired by Conan the Barbarian and other fantasy fare of the time, and inspired a spin-off line aimed at girls called She-Ra, Princess of Power, which was the subject of a recent and acclaimed reboot. My top choice at number 1 is, of course, Skeletor. Skeletor was a hideous looking character, and what good is a hero without a villain? And there are few cooler villains in any 80s action figure line than Skeletor himself. The Filmation cartoon may have made him out to be a little less scary than anyone picking up the action figure might have thought. But look at that action figure. The yellow and blue colour scheme, combined with the criminally simple skeletal face, created a powerful, iconic figure that still rules to this day. Like many of the early Masters of the Universe figures, he featured the twist waist feature to throw a power punch. What do you think of my top 10 list? Do you agree or disagree with my choices? Let me know what your top 10 picks or number 1 pick would be in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe below, smash the like button, and click on the bell icon to be informed of all my future releases. When you click on the bell icon, make sure you select all in the drop-down menu. And also, don't forget to check out the description box below for a link to the AFR action figure database, which is a database of 60,000 plus individually listed action figures, giving details on their release dates, their manufacturer, accessories, rarity, and their historical value. You'll also find links to my Facebook page, website, members only site, and the AFR Vintage Action Figure store.